Yes, I'm Jessica, and I run JHPR, which has been going since 2008, and I started my career in the media almost 20 years ago, which is quite scary, and I had one of those amazing breaks where I was working in a hairdresser's, and I kept dropping out of my A-levels because I wasn't as smart as you guys here. My parents were getting stressed out, and they were like, go back to college. And I just wanted to earn money. So even then, I was probably quite entrepreneurial. And we had to make small talk with customers. So I'm washing this lady's hair, and she says, darling, you're too intelligent to be working here. Come and work for me. And I said, what do you do? And she said, I run an office in Holland Park. Come along on Monday. So I thought, well, office work has to be better than working in a hairdresser's and sweeping up hair at the end of the day. So I went along, and it wasn't until I got there that I discovered she was the publicist to Mariah Carey and George Michael and Versace, who was alive at that time. And that was my break into media. And the rest, I guess, is history. I did go back to uni, studied journalism, worked for a couple of big media PR agencies, and I left in 2008 to start JHPR. We've worked with everybody, some of the biggest names in the UK and in the States, people like Simon Cowell, Samuel Jackson, Hilary Devey from Dragon's Den. And when I started JHPR, my first client was a lady called Hilary Devey. Does that ring a bell? Anyone? Any Dragon's Den fans? And her objective was to become a dragon. And at that time, she was the founder of a fantastically successful company called Palex, which is a haulage company, which was turning over 100 million. So very successful businesswoman, but nobody really knew who she was. So as much as she had all of this business acumen, she needed to build up her personal brand in order to realize her objective of becoming a dragon, because you have to have a reputation. People have to know who you are in order to be on TV in that capacity. So I'm going to try and cram, I've been told we've got 10 minutes. I'm going to try and cram as much as I can in today about PR and how PR is the platform to leverage your brand, which is what Greg's been talking about today, the importance of brand. There are three types of brand: personal brand, company brand, and product brand. And to put that into context, if we think about Apple, Apple would be the company brand. Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, would be the personal brand. And something like the iPhone would be the product brand. And if you think about the values of all three of those, they are aligned. So everything that you associate with your iPhone, you would associate with the late Steve Jobs. So innovation, integrity, creativity. And this is why brand is so important. It's important to know what is it that your brand stands for. And then integrity is making sure that you do what you say you're going to do when you say you do it. So as much as possible, you try to make sure that you stay true to your brand values. So what is PR? PR is one of the means to communicating your brand values, and it serves several purposes. So if you have a product which you want to get stocked, does everyone know what PR is in this room? What does that mean, though? Is kind of relaying a message, your own message to the public? Yes, absolutely. And the way that we do that is through traditional PR was about having relationships with journalists and be able to secure editorial within magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, and now it also means social media and a whole lot more. But it's how when you open a magazine and you see an article which isn't an advert, that's a result of PR generally, in most cases. So if you have a product, you have a fashion brand, or you come up with a brilliant idea for a product that you want to have stocked in John Lewis, for example, PR will help you to achieve that, because once you have editorial coverage and a buzz around your product, you become more appealing to the buyer within that high street store. And I know this because I have another small business which is a product. It's multicultural, greeting cards and gifts. So myself, I've experienced the power of PR in helping me to secure stockists for my brand. If at some stage you want to secure investment in your business in order to grow, PR makes you more appealing to the investor, because you'll have heard that it's not just about your business, it's about you. They're investing in you. And so they want to know they want to know, who is this person behind this brilliant business? It's not enough just to hide behind your product or service. And finally, I guess, it's a way of talking to your target audience. So it's so important to understand who is the target audience for your business. Who are you trying to reach? And think about that in as much depth as possible. Name your customer. Where do they shop? Where do they go on holiday? Are they homeowners? What's their demographic? You need to understand your customer in as much detail as possible, because once you do that, you'll know what it is that they read, which newspapers they read on a Sunday, which radio stations they listen to. And only then can you think about targeting them through PR. So, people think of PR as being something which is for big companies with massive budgets. It's not. It's something that you can do at grassroots level. So you have to have a few tools in order to do that, and I'm not going to go through them in great depth today, but ultimately it starts with a humble press release. And a press release is a document which is about 1.5 pages long max, which succinctly sums up what your product does, where it's available, the 5 W's: where, why, when, who, and when. So when did it launch, or when is it happening? Your biog is all about you. So this is where personal brand comes in again. What was the inspiration behind you starting your business, and what's your vision for it? What's the human benefit of your business? How are you helping people? Is it just by improving their lives? What is it that your product is doing for people? And that's really important, which is why increasingly you'll see brands like the example that Greg just gave you, where they show the staff and they show a bit about what they like. You know, people want to get to know people, particularly with the onset of social media now. There's loads and loads of ways to say, well, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what our business is all about. And just to add to that point, this is a piece of press coverage which came out about one of our startup clients some time ago. And you'll see that the headline is "Dance Entrepreneur's Franchise is a Recession Buster." So the story was that she was launching a franchise for her dance company, which was an opportunity for people. But the interesting part about this is the focus on it being a recession buster, because that's the human benefit. So you'll never see, it's not a story to say we're launching a franchise, but it is a story to say we're launching a franchise, and as a result, people can make extra money in a difficult financial time. Just see the human benefit. You have to think about how is it that your business is helping people, and then communicate that. Otherwise, all you'll be doing is sort of giving your sales pitch, which is different to PR. So we're all brands. You know, how you present yourself, the way you guys are sitting here, the people that are sitting up and listening and taking notice, and those who are slumped over, you're all brands, and it tells me lots about you before you even open your mouth. And that's important to bear in mind when you go out into the big wide world. So this is brand Jessica, and this is 4 facets of who I am. I'm a mum, I'm mixed race, I'm a businesswoman, and up until recently I was a West Londoner. And each of these facets about me represents a different sector of the media that I can tap into, just because this is who I am. I can look over there, can I? So there's a massive entrepreneurial and startup media, which represents opportunities for me to raise the profile of my companies. Where I live means that it's an interesting story to local press. So whether it's BBC London Radio or any of the local papers, they're always interested in stories about local entrepreneurs doing great things. Mum. So because I'm a mum, there's a massive, horribly termed mumpreneur media, which I can tap into because I'm a business mum. And then, of course, I'm mixed race. And in this country, this is of less relevance because we don't have a big ethnic media. But in the United States, where one of my businesses is running, that's a massive opportunity because the African American media is huge. So you see how I'm taking, and you should do this for yourself. And if you're worried about, okay, well, it's not about me, it's about my business, you are aligned. You need to be aligned. And because my personal values are in line with my business values. Do you still see that? Does that make sense? Good. Be consistent. So why is PR so powerful and effective beyond advertising? Because when you open up a newspaper or a magazine and you see an advert, everybody knows you've paid to have that spread there, which means it's you saying, look at how great my beauty cream is. When it's a piece of editorial which has been achieved through PR, it's a third-party endorsement. So it's the beauty editor saying, look how great this product is, which is so much more powerful and has so much more of an impact with the readers. And that's why it works. But it doesn't happen overnight. So PR is something you have to consistently dedicate time to. You know, what we do for our clients is we look at the year and we look at from January to December, what are the peak buying times for their clients? And if you have If you have a product, which you're probably going to have Christmas as a sales peak time, it might be the summer holidays, depending on what it is that you're selling. The same applies to services. And once you're aware of what those peak buying times are, you then need to work backwards, because magazines are writing about Christmas in July and August. So it's not enough to think, oh, end of November, I should really call up Vogue and see if I can get an article in about my Christmas product. You need to be doing that in July or August. So that's why it's so important to work backwards and take into account lead times for the respective media. Obviously, with online, it's much easier, and there's a constant need for content, which Warren's going to talk about, I'm sure. So that's less relevant. But if you're interested in getting into magazines and newspapers, you do need to familiarize yourself with them and get to know when they're writing that content. Coming back to brand values, again, so important. And this is a kind of classic PR case study around misaligned values. This is a guy called Gerald Ratner, which you guys are all too young to have probably heard of, possibly. But he had a multi-million-pound jewelry company. And one day, during an interview, he called his own jewelry crap. And overnight, his multi-million-pound empire crashed. Misaligned values. He wasn't being, there was no integrity within what he was doing. More recently, anyone heard of the Clippers? Yeah, so that NBA team, 10 out of 12 of the players, African-American. His girlfriend, it's a very strange story, but his girlfriend releases an audio tape to media of him saying, I prefer you didn't bring African-American people to my games. He has to then hand down, he has to let go of the team, he's fined millions of pounds, misaligned values. Make sure that you stand by what it is that you're doing and that integrity runs through, because today it's very difficult to get away with that, again, because of social media. You know, everything is out there. You have to be transparent. And then the selling funnels. There's lots of research around this, but sometimes we'll get an article for a client in the Evening Standard, and they'll call up and they'll say, well, the phone didn't ring, and we're delighted with this spread, double-page spread, and they haven't seen an impact in their sales. And the reason for that is because PR is about building blocks. And if you guys have this understanding, then your expectations will be managed when you're very successful and you take on an agency. It starts with the customer becoming familiar with your brand, so awareness. The more they read about you and hear about you on the radio and get your email newsletter twice a month or whatever it is, or see your tweet, trust starts to build. They become familiar and comfortable with you. And then the consideration of the purchase comes in. And then they make the purchase, and hopefully they're so delighted they decide to stay with you, so then there's loyalty. But it all starts with awareness, and that's what PR is really powerful in building. So this is something that you can all do now. You know, stay abreast of current affairs, be aware of what's happening in the news and the media, because everything that happens every single day is a PR opportunity for someone somewhere. There's an opportunity for you to respond to a debate. You know, if there's something which we're missing in society, perhaps you have the solution to it through your business or your brand. And then familiarize yourself with your sort of the key publications. So if you're into music, get to know the key music trade publications. If you're in fashion, do know your drapers, and get to know who your trade publications are, because those guys will support and write about you when you launch. They'll write about your growth, and they'll support you throughout your business journey. And take yourself out of your comfort zone. So do read the papers you wouldn't usually read. On Sunday, buy the Sunday Times, or buy the Observer, and start to familiarize yourself with journalists and what they write about and what they're interested in, and start to think, could I see my business when it's up and running, if it's not already, within those pages? So where does it fit? And I'm going to end on this slide. Power of partnerships. So the most effective way to grow any business is partnering, because what you do in doing that is you team up with another brand, which ideally is bigger than yours, and you leverage off their following and their audience, and there should always be a mutual benefit. So it's about working out what you have to offer, and we always have something to offer, however small we are. Sometimes it's just about making them look really good by supporting you and working with you. And increasingly in this age of startups, big businesses want to be seen to be doing their bit to support startups in the UK. And the way that you decide who to partner with is by thinking about, well, which big brands share my target audience but are not my competition? And they share my brand values. Are we a good fit for each other? And then once you work that out, you can then start to think about, well, how do I reach them? But it starts with, again, really understanding your brand, what you stand for, and who your customer are. Thank you very much.